that's why I usually tell people when they do post-psychotherapy to, look into L-Dopa. And I believe you have a couple good recommendations for that. So feel free to jump in here. Like, what would be your suggestions to increase dopamine and noradrenaline or norepinephrine levels when you're drug-free or coming off
Yeah, that's a good
testosterone
question.
plus testosterone?
I think you probably shoot for the low hanging fruit for something like that, and the first option would be a compound called L-tyrosine. Tyrosine.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of
Mhm.
tyrosine. So
Yeah.
tyrosine is basically like a straight shot to converting to dopamine. It's going to synthesize from tyrosine hydroxylase and dopa
Mhm.
decarboxylase to dopamine, and then you're going to convert some of that tyrosine to norepinephrine right away. And I forget the name of the enzyme there, but it's a pretty straight shot. I mean, tyrosine is effectively a precursor to those neurotransmitters. So 300 to 600 milligrams L-tyrosine daily in that case would be a good standalone option. Increasing the catecholamines as a whole. Well, let's just talk about dopamine, right? I mean, I think that's a big part of it. There's a number of things you can do. You can upregulate or foster the further expression of the enzymes that are converting your tyrosine from your diet into dopamine. And you can do that with a compound called bromontane. Have you heard of bromontane? Do you know what that is?
Yeah. I've tried a sample from a friend of mine, but I never had a
Oh, yeah?
full opportunity to run it for. Yeah, it's difficult to source, it seems, or at least the
Yeah.
sources that I have.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you may look into nootropicscourse.com. That's the last time that I purchased bromontane, and they have it. But it's otherwise it is hard to source.
yeah.
It basically upregulates the expression of the conversion enzymes that take your tyrosine and turn it into dopamine. So just taking like 30 to 50 milligrams of bromontane will help a lot of guys synthesize more dopamine as a result.
All right.
But then,
Yeah.
in addition to that, I mean, there are a lot of compounds that work to, aside from their main mechanism of action, foster catecholamine release. One of them is a chemical called teacrine. It's
All right. Yeah.
it's a methylxanthine, so it's a caffeine analog, and it will make you release more dopamine. So, like, aside from the kind of caffeine energy that you get from it, like, you should also like get that kind of motivated energy. So those are a couple options. And then there's, the list of nootropics that affect dopamine is pretty pretty vast. So there's things like Uridine, which I think I remember you recently talking about.
I really like
which
that
will
one. I think I watched one of your videos like ages ago and like, okay, this sounds good. I got to try this. So I bought a bottle, and then you bought another bottle and another bottle and another, right? Because it really works, like 300 milligrams or something. It's like before, cognitive demanding jobs like recording videos, for example, or research. Yeah, it's really beneficial. And I took that for a long time just solo. And then I through my sponsorship, Gorilla Mind, they started adding it into the Respawn. And yeah, I think it's one of the greatest. Like with nootropics, usually you buy a bottle, and then when your bottle finish, you're like, should I buy another one? Like I've tried so many, like dihexa, for example. You buy a bottle, okay, 10 milligrams feels good. You can try it a couple times. Okay, maybe not so good. You try it every day, then it starts feeling like drugs. Oh,
yeah,
man.
Definitely.
It starts feeling.
Yeah.
So now I have like half a bottle of dihexa sitting here in my cabinet. I'm like, I'd rather take my uridine monophosphate.
Totally. I mean, uridine is so stable as a nootropic. It's insane. It's doing a lot. Some of it's converting to CDP choline. It's giving you more brain choline. It's supposed to be sensitizing dopamine receptors, which kind of just potentiates the effect of your natural dopamine. But then also, if you combine it with choline and B vitamins and DHA, one of the omega-3 fatty acids, those are literally the ingredients you need to spawn new neurons to engage in this process called neurogenesis. So it's like iridine's doing all kinds of stuff, right? And when it is one of the most prominently noticeable nootropics in that, like you said, like you're not going to take and be like, am I noticing this? Definitely going to notice it.
Yeah, you'll definitely notice it. Yeah, and then suddenly 3 hours has passed. You're like, oh, I did so much work. Should I take another dose? But I do feel like the second dose is not as clean as the first dose.
Yep,
sure. Like this. So I just limit it to 1 serving per day, or maybe 4 or 5 times a week. When there's demanding jobs to do. But yeah, that's one of the one that I like more. And I think I saw it on one of your videos ages ago.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't taken uridine for a while, and that happens. I mean, it's like, never is the second dose of a nootropic in a given day as clean
Mhm.
as the first one. I think there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, nootropics, you're almost constantly chasing like or preventing brain homeostasis from kicking in and then
Mhm.
reducing the amount of neurotransmitters that you just like optimize, right? So the
Right.
second doses in the day are always going to be less, kind of subjectively noticeable for that
Mhm.
reason. And then also like you're more tired, you've expended a lot of energy, used your brain and whatever. You don't have that like morning energy, so it's different.
Right. Yeah, I feel that you like even when you are on a full blown entrepreneur stack, with all kinds of nootropics and TRT, there's only so many productive hours in the day for
Yeah.
like real cognitive inspiration to really do
Yeah.
solid work. And then
Yeah.
you kind of push the routine jobs later in the day that you can get away with caffeine or something like that, or maybe the
Yep.
modafinil is still working or the paracetam, you know, is
Right.
still acting up. Right? Those are longer lasting. So,
Yeah.
like, if you have like 4 or 5 hours of real creativity, and then later in the day, if you space it out correctly, you just do your routine stuff, because we all have
Right.
to do that, or accounting and, YouTube back end management, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
yeah, if you structure it like that, I think you can accomplish a lot, in those first couple of hours of the day that you dose something like uridine monophosphate. It's highly
Yeah,
beneficial.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, definitely. That's the routine. Most people should be on if they're using nootropics. Like, a stack that affects them positively in the morning. Somewhere around the administration of their caffeine, so they have that kind of aiding in the energy component of it. Banging out as much work as possible while you have the kind of cognitive reservoir, and then maybe breaking and doing dinner, whatever you do in between. And then I think the second use case for nootropics later in the day is different compounds than your initial stack you took in the morning.
Mhm.
And, you know, you're really only looking for an advancement of your like an enhancement of your baseline at the time. You're not looking to get that really substantially powerful nootropic effect later on in the day because it may disrupt your sleep and whatever,
Yeah.
overstimulate you or
Yeah.
something. But
Right.
like just if you low dose the right nootropics, again, things like teacrine, you could use racetams in the
Mhm.
evening, kind of low medium dose them. Then you enliven your brain function a noticeable degree, but you're not overstimulated. You run way less of a risk for side effects in the evening, and then you can get 2-3 hours more of productivity.
Right. Right. Did you ever use like carnitine, like injectable carnitine, acetyl L-carnitine, carnitine
Yes.
L-tartrate as a little bit
uh,
of a cognitive boosting, to
Totally.
absorb the fat? And yeah. So I found that it's very beneficial, but it's non-stimulating. So if you take like a
For you.
second dose of carnitine, yeah, for me, you know,
Hmm.
I don't find it
Yeah.
stimulating. I find that it kind of opens up the brain for a couple
Mhm.
hours, and I'm always in ketosis, so that helps with cognitive,
Ah,
the functioning quite a bit. So I'm always in
totally.
ketosis for the last and 20 years, maybe even longer.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and then I take carnitine, and then you feel like a little bit of 2 or 3 hours. You feel a little bit of like a brain opening, like almost like limitus, but not to that extent. The
Yeah.
NCT, what was that drug? NCT
Yeah.
before.
Bradley Cooper movie. Yeah.
Right, right,
NCT, the
exactly, yeah,
drug from the dude's
right,
like ex-girlfriend's like brother or something. Like what a
right.
shady deal that was. Gr- Great
No,
movie
that's
though.
how it's. Yeah, a great fun movie. So I like that like a little bit later in the day, and usually I take my carnitine before the workout because it helps with a little bit of fat loss. But
Yeah.
the effect of carnitine is longer lasting. So I do notice, like I just came from the gym, and before we do this podcast, but I do feel that the nootropic benefits of this injectable carnitine is still
Wow.
there. Now,
Wow. So
injectable
how what
carnitine is a much higher
yeah,
bioavailability than oral L-carnitine.
I imagine. So what is your dose? Like how does that translate to like cuz I take the acetylated version that's acetyl
Yeah.
L-carnitine or
Mhm.
Alcar. And yeah, it's totally in the classification of nootropics. The stuff is very powerful.
Mhm.
But my dose is like 300, 400 milligrams. And yeah, for like 2 to 4 hours, noticeable
Mhm.
energy, kind of a stimulant effect, but my brain is working better. Because it turns out the stuff
Right.
makes you yield more acetylcholine. That's like a focus neurotransmitter. But
Right.
given that dose, like what is your your administration of carnitine, injectable administration? How does that
So it's
translate?
higher. It's 500 milligrams injectable L-carnitine sub
Wow.
Q. And keep in
Hmm.
mind, guys, for the guys that's never used injectable L-carnitine, this is not acetyl L-carnitine or L-carnitine L-tartrate. This is pure L-carnitine because the bioavailability issues that you see with oral carnitine are not there because you're injecting it. That also means that it's quite painful. it feels like you're injecting gonorrhea. It burns. It's not nice. Yeah, it's not nice. It lasts for about 2 minutes and you get used to it. But still, for the guys that want to try it, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, get ready. You can't walk away from it. It will follow you, this burning sensation.
Yeah, be
So keep
warned.
it in mind. Yeah, be warned. But the
That's insane.
bioavailability, yeah, is 100%, whereas the bioavailability of carnitine orally is only a
Right.
couple percent.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then you have the risk that it contributes to TMA formation, resulting in
Right.
TMAO, right? And that's not very good for your cardiovascular system.
Yep.
And guys, if you're worried about that allicin, right, garlic extract with your carnitine helps to inhibit that, and otherwise, a cycle of doxycycline, which will kill all the bacteria that produce TMA in the intestinal tract. Of course, you need
Yep.
to repopulate your gut microbiome after that, but
Yeah.
it's the low-hanging fruit to kind of get rid of these issues. But yeah, it's such a big difference. So even if you inject maybe 250 milligrams, that would kind of translate to you taking 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams of oral
Jesus.
L-carnitine. Yeah,
Right.
it's a huge
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why you take it, and then maybe 30 minutes later it goes systemic,
Oh
and it
yeah.
ends up in your brain, and then all
Yeah.
the ketones and the triglycerides, and they all get absorbed. And then
Yeah,
you're
the
like, "Ooh."
mitochondrial optimization. That
Yeah,
makes total sense, man. I mean, that so like if I think of the early days of my nootropics usage when I was a young pioneer,
yeah.
I definitely dosed a lot of a lot of everything at higher doses. And
Mhm.
I think the highest I've ever gone on Alcar was like a gram, and that was very powerful. So I
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine, L-carnitine injectable. It's something I'll put on my list to look into for sure.